Hey, welcome everybody to CoinFund Q&A. We have Alon and Adam from CoinDash. This is CoinDash Part 2 because
right.
Adam, you've already done CoinFund Q&A. So we expect a lot of progress, a lot of updates, so tell us a little bit about what you've been doing in the last couple of months since we last talked. But actually, before we do that, Adam, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us your role at CoinDash today?
Perfect. So I'm right now located in Shanghai, and I manage our local operation. I've been living in China for the past 8 years, more or less. Mostly involved in the financial industry. So I worked in the biggest investment bank in China called CITIC, and then I moved to Shanghai to open the local office for a big fintech company called eToro. Now I'm partnering up with Alan to work on CoinDash.
Nice. And what is your role at CoinDash?
So yeah, I'm with Alan together. I'm co-founder essentially, and then right now I manage most of the PR work and efforts, and obviously everything that has to do with China, and in the future to come our Asia or Asia Pacific expansion. So that's under me currently.
Cool. All right, Alan, what are the updates?
Wow, we talked, I think, like 6 months ago, something like that. I think beginning of the year.
Yeah, it must have been like January, February or something.
Yes, probably. So I think it was just after the EtherCamp hackathon. So since then, we've raised seed money to put us on track with development, and all those regular stuff. Obviously, the team was got expanded a bit. Obviously, we have the Israeli office, we have the Shanghai office, we have a bunch of developers, about designers, community, stuff like that. We've been participating in a lot of events, spreading the word about what we're doing. We've built a huge community around the product. We launched the product. I don't know if we'll have time, but we can do a kind of a quick demo. We've set up our kind of vision and roadmap, partnered with a bunch of companies and people we think can contribute a lot to what we're doing. Some of the things we already kind of announced. Some of the things we'll probably not announce before the ICO. We want to make sure we are ready with the announcements. And so yeah, that was kind of the past 6 months, I guess.
Nice, awesome. I just looked up the actual date. It was November 18th, 2016.
No
so it's
way.
actually
was it even 2016.
Wow.
7, almost 8 months, and you are actually the only startup to come on here twice. So you have that. You were the first to do that.
Really?
And that made me think actually that I'm pretty excited to do that with more startups to sort of like that we've interviewed before, is to sort of like follow their progress as well.
Yeah.
Very cool. So when you say you've built up a huge community, what are we talking here?
Wow. So we have the different channels, right? I mean, this community is very unique, probably because you have the hardcore kind of blockchainers, people who've been in the industry for what, 6 years already, and then you have all the people who came aboard like the last 2 years, and they interact completely different on the medium. So we have a Bitcoin channel with a Bitcoin Talk thread. We have our Slack channels, we have our Twitters, Facebook, obviously our newsletter. And so, you're talking about Bitcoin thread. I think we're having like 120 pages already, almost 100,000 views. Twitter, I think, I have no idea. I tweeted like it's almost 4,000 people, or maybe even more now.
Yeah, around that number.
Yeah, I think 4,000 people there. Slack is 3,000. Newsletter is what, like 4,000. And so, and the best thing is we're seeing a huge kind of. By the way, we launched the product like 2 weeks ago, I think. We already have more than 1,000 people using it. So It's pretty incredible to see that people actually care about what you're doing and engaging with it. We have a bunch of people working on bugs and stuff like that, and helping us make the product better. We have people from all over the world, doing translations for different materials we're doing. We have, like, I don't know, I think with the past 3 or 4 weeks, we did like 10 different meetups around the world where none of the CoinDash employees were there. It was only community members organizing the event and presenting CoinDash for their friends and for their kind of local community. Yeah, I mean, the community is pretty awesome.
So awesome. And you say you released a product.
I think just to.
Oh, go ahead, Adam.
Oh, okay. So I think just adding to what Ellen said is the fact that we also have very supporting in China. So obviously here everything is quite different than the Twitter channels and the Slack channels that we use for the Western community. But the numbers that we're seeing in the Western community or in the Western channels are more or less similar in China, which is a bit of traction here. So we have, I think, around 4,500.
Yeah, I think
the fact that we've been able to establish a company here from the get-go, and I speak fluent Chinese, we have a local team here, was quite a unique offering for the Chinese community, because most of the companies are not able to have this kind of reach and localization from the start. So this is quite interesting as well. Support from here.
Cool. And so Alan, how many people do you have working on the on the tech product now? I know, like, when we saw each other in Tel Aviv, I think you were telling me that initially you were working on a lot of the tech yourself. You're an engineer.
Yeah. First of all, I'm still working on it. I mean, I'm a developer, so it's something I enjoy doing, and hands-on is always a good thing. And so yeah, I mean, we have a couple of different developers. Ali is leading the product and development, so in a sense, he's my boss on that respect. We have a couple of other developers. We're actually hiring right now additional developers. We have also, so for example, we have a developer in China doing, first of all, working on some aspect of the product, but also doing localization. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, you're talking about, I guess, like 4 people working on the product itself, hands-on.
Nice. And the other interesting thing to kind of follow along with you guys, right, is that we're always, you guys are heading toward a token sale, right? This is, in the beginning, you started the process where you just had the idea and you were putting together the white paper. Then you were, you were either bootstrapping the company or raising private funding in the beginning. And this is a process that many companies who are heading towards sale are working through, right? So can you, like, what can you tell us about how you've been able to finance, the last 9 months or so heading into sale, and then how is the sale going to impact the way that you fundraise for CoinDash?
So as I mentioned before, we raised a small seed round. I think it was around $220,000. That got us through here. So it's anything from paying salaries to legal and kind of tax people coming in helping the company. And so that brought us here. And the ICO, I mean, the sale itself, I mean, it's pretty much saying, well, the sale does 2 things, 2 main things. One of which is known to everyone is funding the actual product, but the second one is really creating a very strong bond between the investors and the company itself, because they're investing in the company, and so they're your biggest advocates and will help you no matter what in making whatever you're doing good. And it's especially true in CoinDash because they are, our investors are also our end users, because we're developing platforms for investors. And so on the community side, it's an amazing kind of thing, because then, even our big community now will increase, and those connections will become much stronger. And on the financial side, obviously you can scale up and do things on a much more kind of a big scale, especially if you want to be competitive in this crazy market, you have to be able to move fast. And so you can't really do that on $200,000 budget. You need more gunpowder essentially. And so this is what the sale itself does. Obviously, it also helps you build kind of a longer runway for the company. So you don't need to worry every 4 months about where you bring money from. You have a runway you can commit to, and you have enough funds for it. Development, everything that has to do with the company.
Okay, so here's a question. Typically, companies will sort of fill this cash flow gap that you're in. Well, you don't have a cash flow gap because you already solved it, but this time period, right, between the early stages and the token sale, they generally do it in one of 3 ways. I mean, there's probably more, but this is what I've seen most commonly. Either they do a pre-seed round for equity, which is, I think, what you did. They do a SAFT round. Now, this is, the SAFT note is the simple agreement for future tokens that has been now used a bunch of times, for early private kind of funding to generally accredited investors, because the SAFT is, it's a securities offering. The U.S. securities regime is always the standard there, right? And then other times they will do like a pre-sale, but using just smart contracts where you get issued the tokens like quite early. So what drove your decision to do, one of these methods, namely the pre-seed for equity, rather than something else?
First of all, we did some kind of a mix between some of them. So it wasn't strictly equity; it was kind of a mix. And what drove it is that our investors are people from the community. So, they understand what equity is for, they understand what tokens are for, and then, you just negotiate and try to find a place where everyone is happy. And so, yeah.
Gotcha. And pointed question, what is CoinDash equity for? That is to say, what is the return proposition for investors on CoinDash equity?
So that's a kind of a question from a broader kind of problem I think the whole industry is kind of facing or will face very soon. I mean, what is a blockchain company, right? I mean, a standard company is very clear. There's equity behind it. If you issue 100 shares, that company, and you hold 1 share, then you have 1 divided by 100 of that company. But now you have blockchain companies, which are a bit different. And so it's a question from kind of a broader aspect, because I mean, there are things related and connected to the token itself. There are things connected to the equity itself. So for example, from a legal point of view, the company, the regulator doesn't know what a token is yet. And so the equity is representing, the team and all the partnerships you did, and the IP you developed and everything else.
But typically the equity would expect some kind of revenue, right? And that's why an investor would.
You're talking about dividends. Yeah, dividends is one thing, but if you're talking on kind of a broader context, then you're talking essentially about the return an investor can expect to have. And so it really depends what investor you are. So VCs are expecting 10x. On their most profitable company, or whatever, 3x on abroad across all the companies they invested in. And so, but again, it's a bit different, because if the company, first of all, the company might hold tokens, and so the equity owners are essentially holding some of those tokens. So I mean, the relationship is pretty mixed right now. I mean, blockchain companies.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is like, how do you view that relationship, right? So this is something that every company who is bringing up a token supply and maybe a decentralized network has to kind of think about. They're like, is the business model for my equity investors the fact that my company holds tokens, and therefore they're getting basically exposure to the token while not having to buy that token directly? Or is it that my company has a kind of proprietary business model around the software, around the network, around some kind of service that it provides, and that business model generates revenue on behalf of the equity holders, and then gets paid out?
Probably both. I mean, again, it's really, we can't know right now, because tokens represent one thing, but it's kind of mixed with what equity is representing. And so even simple questions like, what's the valuation of a company after ICO, right? So, okay, so you have the, the number, the amount of money that company raised, you have the amount of tokens that company might hold, but then you have the whole equity side, and how do you calculate, the IP and the technology that company is providing, and, if there's a network behind a company, how do you value that? And so, again, it's kind of because we didn't have a company. I don't think I know about a company who did an ICO who got sold. So once we'll get to that point, then you'll know exactly what each investor gets, because once you'll get to that point, you'll start to understand how you evaluate those companies, and what investors are looking for when they want to buy a company like that. But I mean, it's part of being excited about the ecosystem. I mean, I'm feeling like everyone knows what CoinDash does, because we're talking about like a future ICO after what happened in 3 years. So I hope it's a good point.
Excellent. Yeah. So these are like really interesting questions to think through, and you guys, your company and many of the other companies in blockchain today are kind of pioneers of these models, and they're just trying different things and seeing what works.
That's by the way one of your kind of the reason why, or essentially the kind of the problem we're trying to solve is, if you look at the kind of the way the industry is going to, then we've touched on some of those points. I mean, you're talking about a new asset class. You're talking about a new type of company, which is very interesting and potentially can change a lot of the things we used to in the old world. And so, you need a way to make those investors coming in understand better the market, what companies they want to invest in, what ICO they want to participate in. All of those things create, I think, a huge opportunity, but also a huge challenge from the industry point of view, because we don't have those tools. I mean, people are using Excel sheets to keep track of their portfolios, decide what to invest in based on hype / just talking with friends. I mean, it's not very accessible to anyone. And so, as exciting as this whole thing is, it also creates huge challenges, which we as an industry must solve, because otherwise we'll just lose a bunch of people trying to get in. I mean, I think currently hundreds of thousands of new users who are trying to get in every year just don't, because it's too difficult, so complex. They don't understand the market. I mean, just imagine how many people approached you and said, "Dude, I wanna I buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, participate in ICO," but 6 months later, they still didn't do anything, right? I know a lot of them, and so those are lost customers. I mean, any other, if you compare the industry to a business, then this business has a huge churn ratio, right? I mean, a lot of people want to get in but don't. It's not a good. It's amazing place to be with such high demand, but you need to fulfill that demand in an accessible way. Otherwise, those people won't get in, and so that's exactly kind of the problem we're trying to solve. I mean, if you can give good tools to traders, if you can make their lives easier and make this whole thing accessible, then you can help this technology to expand. You can make more people use that. And so we're starting with the portfolio dashboard. I mean, just throw away the Excel sheet everyone is using. I'm using it. I had enough of it. I mean, it doesn't really give you any insight about your investments. I can touch about a few. We're seeing a lot of investors, a lot of people, using and testing our products, and I can tell you that people are not as profitable as they think they are, which is a huge point for people to understand. And so once you understand, you can actually start analyzing where you did good, where you did bad, and so this is kind of the baseline. I mean, just good tools for investors, but on top of that, we can build something we call social trading, which is essentially the ability to follow another trader and copy his investments, might it be ICOs or secondary market assets. And so there you can remove a lot of the friction newcomers are experiencing, because if you can follow a top trader, that might be your ticket in. I mean, you can start learning from the top dogs in the industry, and start understanding better yourself. And so those two things are critical in my opinion to make this thing much more accessible.
That is a very common question that I get from people who are not yet in the space. They kind of have one foot in the door, and they're like, "But I don't understand. What do I buy? What do I buy?" And I know we've talked about this a bunch of times, but so your thesis is that by being able to follow someone who knows what they're doing, these people can have like an easier transition into.
Right. I mean, trading in general is a very social intensive thing, but it's especially true in crypto because of the size of the market. And because there's not enough data and materials newcomers can start learning and understanding. I mean, just keep in mind that, for example, if you compare to the traditional markets, right? So Forex markets or stock markets or whatever, you have, at least 100 years of experience people can learn from. You have a ton of platforms, you have a ton of materials. Anyone, just go to YouTube, start writing, how do I trade? And you'll have 100,000 videos. Try do that with crypto, right? I mean, it's a whole different thing. And so again, if this is the biggest use case for blockchain technology, then it's also becomes the biggest challenge because I mean, you have to bring tools for those people to onboard. Just imagine if you had the most incredible service in the world, but you have to be a computer genius in order to log in and create your user. That's where we at right now. I mean, we have the best, I think, one of the best kind of technologies in the since the internet. But logging in and creating a user is just too difficult. I mean, we have to make it simpler. And so yeah, I mean, we're seeing that those problems, even with people already holding assets, like Ethereum or Bitcoin, are still having a lot of trouble understanding, how they can diversify their portfolio, invest in ICOs, invest in secondary markets. I mean, who has the time? Who has the, you need to be good. You need to have, keep track of everything. And so even for those people, they need those tools.
Cool. So this is a question for both of you. I want to start with Adam and give him a chance to talk a little bit more to us as well. But talk to me about the actual market. Like, we've heard a lot of comments about how, hey, we might be in a bubble. Ethereum might crash. This might happen. That might happen. August 1st for Bitcoin is a big day where, with potentially a bit of uncertainty about what's going to happen and what its impact to price. You guys are building trading software on the premise that blockchain investing is the killer app right now, right? This is what our joint article was about. And I guess my question is, like, how sensitive is your product to the volatility of these markets? Like, will you lose customers if there's a big crash? Like, is that going to impact your business in a really bad way?
I think Adam is on mute. Adam?
Maybe go for it, Alan.
Sure. So actually, it's a question where I'm asking myself every day. So what are the fundamentals my business is built on, right? And so I'm thinking, and so the fundamentals are, do we think more and more ICOs will come into play? Do we think ICOs are a good means of raising capital and being given access to companies to capital? And I think yes. I mean, I think we'll see more and more people doing ICOs. By the way, independent of the price, and I can tell you from our research into the market, if the underlying asset, which is Bitcoin or Ethereum, going down, it's a time to invest in ICOs, not the other way around, right? So I think it's independent from the price itself. That's one thing. Given that, it doesn't make sense that more and more assets will be traded, right? More assets get created, more assets will be traded. And so I think those two fundamental points, and the third one is do people find it attractive and think it's a good system? And I think that's an obvious yes. I think those three kind of fundamental questions, I think, make me more certain that this whole thing, by the way, independent from CoinDash, this whole kind of ecosystem will get evolved, and become bigger and bigger. And then obviously, if it becomes bigger, I want to be the first one in. I want to have the first kind of leg into the door. And so yeah, I think first of all, I don't think the market will crash and burn. I think obviously there are corrections. We saw a couple of them. I don't think the market will crash and burn. I don't think we'll see Ether at $7 anymore, unfortunately. I wish we will. I mean, it's an amazing buy opportunity, but I don't think we'll see that. Will we see good corrections, big corrections? Probably. I mean, we saw a 50% correction not too long ago. We'll probably see more.
What about you, Adam? The question is, what are the fundamentals of CoinDash's business, and how does the crypto market impact your ability to be profitable and operate?
So you're really breaking off. I think I got part of the question. There's a connectivity problem with all Google services in China. Can you repeat maybe? So
the question is,
yeah.
What are the fundamentals of CoinDash's business?
Yeah.
And in particular, how does the behavior and volatility of the crypto markets impact CoinDash?
So the business model and fundamentals, I think, are community-driven and network-driven in many ways. The token that CDT or CoinDash token is essentially going to be used in our ecosystem. It's going to be used for people to acquire value from other users and to acquire investment experience from other users, copy other users, view their portfolios, become more experienced and proficient themselves in the markets. So essentially, the business model and fundamentals are driven by the community and the community's behavior and the way they consume the different services and different knowledge base that the network will have to offer once we'll reach, scale with our user base. So this essentially the way I see the fundamentals of our business. And in terms of you broke off in the last part of the question.
So my question is basically like, if there's a giant, if we're in fact in a big bubble and there's a big correction, right? Is that going to be a problem for CoinDash's business model?
So I have some experience from eToro in that sense, and we've seen like volatility in the markets in many times in eToro in trading arena.
China
business, good entry points. Create good.
Adam, you're breaking up a little bit. We probably lost the last 20 seconds or so. Adam, you're breaking up a little bit. We probably lost the last 20. All right. Should we just move on?
Yeah, Adam will join us.
Okay. Sorry about that. It's just we have a kind of a poor connection here. Okay, cool. So I guess like you mentioned that we might be able to see a demo today.
Sure. Let me share the screen with you guys. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So what you're seeing now is the platform itself. It's available on app.coindash.io. Okay, so anyone can get in, log with his Gmail or email account, and start using it. So I'll start with kind of the basics. So we have kind of a basic building block called a portfolio. A portfolio might hold different types of accounts. So we're starting with Ethereum, but it very soon we'll start integrating other accounts like Poloniex or Bitcoin or Rootstock. By the way, all of those we already did integrations with, but on a kind of a proof of concept level. And so once you have a portfolio, then you can start associating different accounts. So I'm entering to my portfolio. Currently, there's one Ethereum account associated with, and I can see the different assets that account is holding. I can see its performance, and I can even expand to kind of a deeper insight to the dashboard itself, right? So let me go piece by piece. So here is the different assets that this account is holding and the USD value of those assets. In the middle, you see the big graph. And so that graph is essentially one of the kind of key information elements you can draw. So in the yellow graph is showing the Ethereum price essentially. And so in this case, Ethereum represents the market, right? Because those are Ethereum-based accounts. And the pink graph shows the actual portfolio performances. And those two are benchmarked and normalized to one another. So what you'll end up with is essentially a very visual way to understand if you're beating or essentially overperforming or underperforming the market. And so clearly you can see that for the majority part of the time, this portfolio is this time frame, the portfolio is underperforming the market, right? So the yellow here is overperforming the market. Just a sec. And so, for example, you can go to the 15th of June and see that on that specific day, the portfolio overall did 321%, and the market, which in this case is Ethereum, did 676%. You can see that the various balances that portfolio holds on that exact date, the USD value, all of those things. And as I mentioned before, if you start looking where the pink graph is going above the yellow one, that's the point where Ethereum started to drop down a bit, and the portfolio became more profitable because you're diversifying your assets. And so that's why I started explaining that a lot of the people invested during the height of Ethereum, where it was, say, around $400. But what they did essentially is underperform the market, because investing in those prices, they essentially gave very valuable ethers to ICOs. So you should have just invested when Ether was dropping down a bit. And so it's very interesting to see and show people that they are not as profitable as they might think. It's a very important thing to understand, and then you can understand, which investments were good, which investments weren't good, and maybe correct and make yourself a better trader.
I bet a lot of people would have questions like, should I hold tokens, like maybe one token or a diversified portfolio of several tokens, or should I just hold Ether, right? And which one is the better upside, and which one is a better risk profile?
Right. So and by the way, it changes between different assets, different ICOs, right? So just imagine how huge of a leap it is from the the simple Excel sheet everyone is using to truly understand what your portfolio is doing. And by the way, you can hold several portfolios. So this is my portfolio. I might have a portfolio I hold for friends, right? And see how that performs and what different characteristics are. So this is I think we've talked about it before, that a lot of people manage other people's money, and so that might be a very interesting tool for them to to separate from their main portfolio and keep track of their friends' portfolio.
Nice. It would be also really interesting to see risk-adjusted returns, I guess, right? Because sometimes, maybe your portfolio doesn't go up as much as Ether does, but it has a better, it's much less volatile, right?
So those are the things we'll integrate it and start pushing forward with the portfolio in the near future. But definitely, I mean, the majority of our work until now was to even gather the data and make it in a solid way. I mean, we showed you, I think, like 4 or 5 months ago, a much less pretty version of that. But the problem with that version was it wasn't very stable. I mean, you've just entered different accounts, and if that account had different assets or something like that, it was crashing. And so the majority of the time was to bring that to a sufficient level where it can actually work and produce results. And now we're seeing it. I mean, we have 1,000 people, and obviously there are some bugs, but the majority of the bugs are related to user experience and UI, and not the engine itself. So that's a huge progress with it. And now once we have a way to, you know, organize the data, building stuff like risk-adjusted results and all those things are a much easier task because you have the data to work with.
So your beta is open right now, right? Anyone?
Yeah, everyone can go to app.coindash.io and log in and start using it.
Awesome. And you said that that's been basically up for about 2 weeks, and you already have 1,000 people registered.
Yeah, I think the earliest version we've opened to the public was about 2 weeks ago, I think. Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, those are some pretty good numbers.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's thanks to our community. I mean, we have, I think, I don't know the exact numbers. We can check it, but we have even Slack channels for the beta testers and everything. So you know, people can report bugs and stuff, and I think we're having even decent numbers there. People, you know, actively looking and helping us build a better product. So yeah, we have like 80 people on the beta Slack channel, you know, bombarding us with bugs and reports and everything, which helps us, you know, make this thing better. Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. And so when I'm actually in the app right now, and this looks great, and it's asking me to enter a valid Ethereum address. Is that because are you actually like reading balances of Ethereum addresses here?
So first of all, it's valid means that it's an actual Ethereum address, right? It's not just a bunch of numbers. And yeah, I mean, what we're doing is once you associated those accounts, we're going and querying the blockchain and understanding, you know, the different withdrawals, deposits, ICO investments, trades you did. You know, if you have several Ethereum accounts, did you transfer between them? Because obviously that won't be a withdrawal and deposit. We need to consider that. And so it goes and does hundreds of calls to the blockchain itself and gets this data. The reason why it takes us so long to do the calculation right now is, again, because it's a beta stage product. We're using Etherscan as our blockchain API. And so obviously once we go to production, we'll make our own, which will be much more efficient, and the calculation itself will be much faster, obviously.
Gotcha. Cool. And so the intention though is, are you gonna, is the CoinDash app gonna help to custody these? I mean, what am I asking? So the assets live in these various addresses.
Right.
Is CoinDash going to ever take custody of these assets?
That's the last thing I want to do. I mean, believe me, there's no sense in that. I mean, there's no sense. You want to use the characteristics and of the blockchain when they're good and make sense, right? And so, as you saw, you just enter your Ethereum address. We don't require the private key. Even more so, like in a more advanced features like copy ICO. You know, where you can follow a top trader and copy his ICO investments automatically. That will be done through a smart contract. I mean, there's no reason why we need to act as intermediaries in that sense. It doesn't add anything. The user experience will be better off if it will be done in a centralized manner. And obviously the security is much higher. I mean, there's no single point of failure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Cool. Awesome. And when do you anticipate that this is going to transition from kind of a public beta to something a little bit more stable? Like, what is your roadmap?
I think it will be very fast after the ICO. I think one of our strong points is we are one of the you know, there's not a lot of blockchain companies in the space who deliver so fast, and our cycles are pretty fast. I mean, once a week we have a new version. And so I don't think it will take a lot of time. I think a couple of months after the ICO, you will probably be in a much closer kind of situation to a production-ready product. And the aim is towards the end of the year also releasing the copy ICO features, obviously to production.
Mm-hmm. And I know that your focus with this product has been probably like retail crypto investors, right? Like people who are coming in, they need a little bit more help, they need to follow a trader, they need to learn. get some data, etc. Do you see that this product eventually becomes a tool for more institutional customers as well, or is this like mostly retail forever?
So the engine itself in the app is can handle both, you know, retail and commercial applications. What you're talking about is essentially the user experience, because obviously the needs are a bit different. Might do, I don't know. We don't have plans for it right now. We might do that. I don't know. I mean, if we'll see a good demand for that, then maybe yeah. By the way, we're seeing a lot of people. So, for example, once you have that data, then you can help people organize their taxation reports with using the platform, because, you know, with Excel sheets it's very hard to do because you have hundreds of trades and everything. And so once you have an automated system, you can even do that. So there's a lot of features we haven't thought about, but people from the community suggest. And so I probably will focus on retail and, you know, kind of B2C more, maybe B2B in the future as well.
Nice. All right, cool. Like, great progress. Awesome job on putting out your beta. And tell us a little bit about your ICO and tell be paying attention to if they want to keep up with the project.
So I think Adam wanted to say something. Adam? Okay, so I guess there's bad connection there. So the ICO is on the 17th of July, which is, I don't know, 10 days away. It will be built on the token will be issued on Ethereum, ERC20 token. Pretty straightforward. I mean, you know, send Ether to the contract, you'll get the tokens. The hard cap is $12 million worth of Ether. We'll announce the exact number of Ethers closer to the ICO, depending on the pricing, obviously. We'll sell 50% of the tokens. What else? We're talking about a community a lot, and so one of our ways to say thanks to the people supporting us early on is we did something called whitelisting early supporters. So people who were active from the get-go, you know, not just people joining Slack for the, you know, the past week and, you know, and just to understand how to invest, but people who, you know, actively supported us and helped us along the way the past year. And so we will give them 20 minutes head start on the public, where they can go and invest. We'll essentially disclose the Ethereum address beforehand to them only, and 20 minutes later to everyone else. And so this is kind of our way to thank them and say, guys, I mean, thank you for your work, and if you want to get in, I mean, you have those 20 minutes to do so. But other than that, I think, I mean, mostly it's a standard ICO sale.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you guys very much, both of you. I know it's tough to get on to some of these Google networks from China, but we did the best we could with Adam. Adam, maybe next time we'll try to get a better connection going. Alan, thank you for updating us. This has been awesome. I'm going to post this after we're done, and hopefully you'll get 1,000 more, get a better connection of your beta in the next 2 weeks as well. And again, thank you, and see you next time.
Thanks, Jake. Bye-bye.
Okay, take care. Bye, guys.